Twinkling in the winter sky, just before dawn, Matariki, the Pleiades, signals the Māori New Year. For Māori, the appearance of Matariki heralds a time of remembrance, joy, and peace. It is a time for communities to come together and celebrate. In the 2000s, it became more common for both Māori and Pākehā, which is European people, to celebrate Matariki. From 2022, a public holiday marking Matariki will be held in June or July each year. So I am technically a little bit late. 2023, 14th Friday, July. That was our Matariki in New Zealand. I did try recording it, but it just turned out so poorly that I actually just couldn't release that video. It was so bad, so bad. I believe Matariki is a little bit more unique to New Zealand, so if you guys are interested in finding out, stay tuned. I'll get straight into it. Ishku. Matariki is an abbreviation of Ngā Mata Aotearoa Tawhiri Matia, the eyes of the god Tawhiri Matia, and refers to a large cluster of stars known in some European traditions as the Pleiades. According to Māori tradition, the god of the wind, Tawhiri Matia, was so angry when his siblings separated the parents, Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papatuanuku, the Earth Mother, that he tore out his eyes and threw them into the heavens. Traditionally, Matariki was a time to acknowledge the dead and to release the spirits to become stars. It was also a time to reflect and to be thankful for the gods for the harvest, to feast and to share the bounty of the harvest with friends and family. That we will get more in depth about in just a second. Part 1, Heralding the New Year. Tirahia ake nā whetu, me ko Matariki e arau ana, he tiki mai e taho, I ngā mahara e kohi nei. Whakararia ake nā te roi mata koa riringi, he puna waikai aku kamo. I gaze up to the stars, to the assembly of Matariki. Captured are my memories of you, who have left me behind, tears rippling like springs in my eyes. Matariki is a small cluster of stars, also known as the Pleiades, in the Taurus constellation. In New Zealand, it comes into view low in the northeastern horizon, in the tail of the Milky Way, just before dawn in midwinter. This heralds the Māori New Year and the changing of the seasons. Iwi celebrate Matariki at different times, some when the cluster is first seen in the dawn sky, others after the full moon rises, or at the beginning of the next new moon. For some iwi, the star cluster includes 7 stars, while for others it has 9. But for all iwi, the importance of Matariki is expressed through proverbs and songs, linking it with the bright star, Whānui, otherwise known as the Vega star. Kaputa Matariki, karere whanui, ko te tohu tēnā o te tau e. Matariki reappears, Whānui starts his flight, being the sign of the new year. As for how Matariki came to be, we mentioned before that Matariki was an abbreviation of Ngā Mata Aotearoa Tawhiri Matia, the eyes of the god Tawhiri Matia. And those stars that are included, the 7 or the 9 stars, also have names. So we have the Matariki star, which signifies well-being, reflection, hope, and the gathering of people. It is considered to be a female star, and it's also the guardian of the other stars in the cluster. The name Matariki denotes both this individual star and the whole cluster. We also have Waiti, the star linked with fresh water and the food that comes from the fresh water, and Waita, the star linked with the ocean and the food that comes from it. Tupuanuku, the star linked with food that grows in the ground. Tupuarangi, the star linked with food that comes from the skies, such as fruits, birds, berries, etc. And we also have Waipunarangi, which is the star linked with rain. Ururangi, the star that determines the winds for the year. Ururangi. It's got a nice tone to it. Potokawa, the star associated with those who have died. And I believe it is also a bright red summer flower that is very beautiful and a native species of New Zealand as well. Hiwa Iterangi, the star associated with dreams and aspirations for the coming year. Some people also say that Matariki is the mother and the other stars are her daughters. And in one account, in one lore, one myth, one legend, Matariki and her daughters appear to assist the sun, which is called Te Ra, whose winter journey from the north has left him weakened. That seems to be the main lore that is associated with Matariki. So not everyone recognizes just Matariki. While all iwi celebrate the Māori New Year in June or July, some iwi in Whanganui, Taranaki, the far north and the South Island refer to this period as Puanga rather than Matariki. In these parts of the country, the Matariki star cluster is hard to see clearly, and so iwi place importance on the star Puanga, which is called Rigel or Rigel in English, and that is the next significant star closest to Matariki, and it's also easier to see in the twilight. Some tribes, such as Naitahu in the South Island, they call the star Puaka instead of Puanga. And other regions might refer to the star Rehua, which is called the Antares star in English, as the star that denotes the changing of the seasons rather than Matariki. So it's all pretty geological. Depends on where you can see the star from, which decides which star denotes the changing of the seasons. It's pretty interesting. As we just mentioned, Matariki kind of differs. The way it gets calculated kind of differs depending on the environment the iwi or tribe lives in. But the Māori New Year is based on the lunar phases, which is the cycles of the moon. So it follows a 354-day system rather than the Western European calendar or the Gregorian calendar, which is 365.25 days. And that's based on the movement of the Earth around the Sun instead. Which means that each year, Matariki occurs on slightly different days because we follow the Western calendar. So Matariki sets during the lunar month called Haratua, which is our mid-May to early June, and that is a sign to the Maori people that harvest season has come to an end, and by this time people should have done all their preparations for the winter months ahead. And Matariki will actually reappear in the lunar month of Te Tahi or Pipiri, which is late June or early July, and that marks the beginning of the Māori New Year, this is around the time period where I'm releasing this video, last week actually, technically. Yeah, so it will vary depending on the year, when exactly that date is. However, Matariki festivities should not commence until Tangaroa, which is the last quarter moon of the first month of the Māori year, and that usually comes a few days after the first rising of Matariki above the horizon. Matariki was used also to predict aspects of the coming year, such as the weather and the likelihood of a good harvest. It was also used very intricately in cycles of life and death, which I very briefly touched upon in the very beginning. 3 things are particularly important. Number 1 is remembering those who have passed away. Haere atu, rae koro ki te pai pai o Matariki, o rehua. Haere atu ra. Farewell, old man. Go to the threshold of Matariki, of rehua. Farewell. Māori traditionally greeted the first sightings of Matariki with expressions of grief for those who had died since its last appearance. A ceremony called Whangai i te Hautapu was held at this time to remember the dead. This also involved feeding the stars with specially prepared foods. In 1957, Rangi Unapire recalled being taken as a child to watch for Matariki at Kaupokonui in South Taranaki. The old people might wait up several nights before the stars rose. They would make a small hangi. When they saw the stars, they would weep and tell Matariki the names of those who had gone since the stars set. Then the oven, or the hangi, would be uncovered, so the scent of food would rise and strengthen the stars, for they were weak and cold. Number 2, Matariki is also used to celebrate the present. Nakai a Mataraki, nana I awake kirunga, the foods of Matariki, by her scooped up. Once the time of grief was over, the emphasis of Matariki shifted to celebration. Because Matariki happened at the end of harvesting, there was an abundant supply of food for feasting. People rejoiced, sang, and danced to celebrate the change of season and new beginnings. Matariki atua, kaeke mai I te rangi e roa, e whangainga I o ki te mata o te tau e roa e. Divine Matariki, come forth from the far-off heaven, bestow the first fruits of the year upon us. Matariki was also a time for planning for the year ahead. If the stars were clear and bright, it signaled a favorable and productive season ahead, and planting would begin in September. However, if the stars appeared hazy and closely bunched together, a cold winter was in store, and planting was put off until October. And we also need to talk a little bit about modern Matariki. Matariki celebrations were popular before the arrival of Europeans in New Zealand, and they continued into the 1900s, but gradually they dwindled, with the last elaborate traditional festivals recorded in the 1940s. Although some iwi retained regional knowledge, some new Māori faiths, such as Ringatu incorporated aspects of traditional Matariki festivals into new customs. There was, thankfully, a revival as well. At the beginning of the 21st century, Māori began to revive the practice of celebrating Matariki as a time of remembrance, joy, and peace. Iwi, Hapu, and Whānau once again came together at Matariki to mourn family members, to share kai, wanga, wananga, which is to have discussions, and whakanui, which is to celebrate. Within the local community, some hold traditional ceremonies at dawn to call out the names of people who have died since the last rising of Matariki as a form of farewell, and to cook seasonal food. Iwi had a significant role in reviving interest in the celebration in the wider community. When Te Rangi Huatu organized the first modern public Matariki celebrations in Hastings in 2000, about 500 people joined him. But since then, his work has grown, with major events each year in Wairoa, Napier, Hastings, Waipukurau, and Masterton. These give thanks for the harvest and pray for a bountiful planting season, bringing the whole community together in doing so. In 2021, between 2,500 and 9,000 people attended these major events. We've also had a number of books by experts, which has helped to reinforce the special place of Matariki in Māori culture and communities. We've also had a number of events organized by different local councils and institutions, and kapaka festivals, star observations, fireworks, hangi, concerts all around the country. And in 2017, traditional fireworks night in Wellington, which was previously held in November to mark Guy Fawkes Day, was shifted to July to celebrate Matariki. And because Matariki was revived, it also increased the popularity of traditional Māori kites, also called pākau. Hekenuku Mai Busby, an expert in traditional navigation, said that the ancestors of Māori, including the Polynesians of ancient history, welcomed Matariki by flying kites. And last but not least, we now celebrate Matariki on Fridays, usually in late June or early July in New Zealand. I hope you guys learned something new and enjoyed the video. Even I learned something new. I learned many new things in this actually, and I live here. So, yep, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in another video. And if you guys remember for next year, late June, early July, Matariki. Good night, sweet dreams.